Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest SAS User Group UK and Ireland meetup. We've got Tom here from the US, who's going to be presenting for us today on the use of D3 and SAS OnDemand. So over to you, Tom.
All right. You can see my screen, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. All right, there we go. Yeah, so what happened is when I started with the company I'm at now, there was about 70 people in the organization. And I was always asking like, well, who works for who? Do you have an organizational chart? And once I found it, of course, it was like a year out of date. And so people would move, shift around, replaced. And then you typically would see 15 to 20 people in little boxes and so forth. So part of my vision was, how can I show, like 50, 60, 70 people on a single page? How would you go about doing something like that? And I've always been interested in graphics and things of that nature. So I looked around and came across D3, which stands for data-driven documents. And apparently this is one of the most popular JavaScript libraries out there. And the nice thing about it is, instead of having prepackaged, things like if you create a graph like in Excel, it's already pre-bundled and you just kind of fill in some blanks. You have total control. You're down to the pixel level if you so desire. So that's kind of where I started with. And I remember even talking about this with Alan a little bit when I first met him in Denver in 2019. Anyway, so a little bit about myself. So I'm a SAS certified advanced programmer, and I guess just trying to convey some information onto the rest of you guys is that probably some of the best background material information related to SAS is the certification things. So, you take the standard base one, and then there's the advanced one. And that's why I have this image up here. I'm also the creator of this particular blog. So I live in the state of Kansas. So I called it Can SAS, kind of play on words, code, blogspot.com. And I guess it was in talking to Alan that I was trying to create something that emulates Doxygen, and then he told me about Doxygen, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to learn that. And I decided to take the time to go through and try to figure out all the nuances, worked with Alan, and created a SAS 2021 global forum paper called Introduction to Doxygen, which I think was in the top 10 or 15% of all the papers based on the number of hits on the website. So I guess when I first heard from Alan, I was, on the blog, I think I mentioned something about the SAS OnDemand for academics. So I'll reference it shortly as SODA, just as an abbreviation. So I think I wrote a blog entry about it, and I think Alan was like, hey, would you do a presentation? And so I kind of started off saying like, oh, this is kind of cool stuff. Because in the past, and I forgot the name of the predecessor, you had to download, some like Oracle component onto your local drive and so forth. But this is all in the cloud. It's really fast. It's always up to date. It's free. You really just can't beat it. So you get 5 gigabytes of storage. And part of the reason I got into this is that I would write some code, at work, and then even when I was doing that Doxygen paper, it was frowned upon that I was sending information back and forth from work to home. So the ability to have a really, up-to-date SAS version that's free was just a fantastic thing. And if you want to learn more about it, then I have this link down here, and I'll send this entire presentation out to whomever, where I talk about, how do you get started with this stuff, what it can do, how easy it is. And it's just a great resource. So as part of this thing, getting into this whole, D3 organizational chart is basically what it is. You get into issues with, I'm sure it's a big thing over there as well, personally identifiable information. So I can't take, the roster, if you will, of the 50, 60 people that I work with, because, now you're displaying information that is, I guess, frowned upon. So, and if you look at things like I use the SAS help class a lot, it's got like 19 rows. So it's like, I don't want to do that. But So I was like, okay, I've always been interested in like, how do you create your own sample data? So that was one of the things. And I used, the SAS OnDemand product to do that. And one of the things, and actually this is my very first blog entry back in 2011, so I've been doing this for 10 years, is just a recognition that you can go down to using the ASCII characters to get the values that you want. So if you combine this with like the random function, then you can say, hey, I want a range between decimal 65 to 90 to get all the uppercase A through Z characters. Similarly, from 97 to 122 are the lowercase A to Z characters. And so you can use the SAS functions to extract that information in a loop. And that's kind of what I was doing here. So, and I guess I just had a little bit, just a couple of snippets related to that. So the first thing I did is say, hey, from 0 to 3, I'm going to say if it's 0, that person's title is the president. And then I always had this link down to create data. So that's just calling a named section. And then I would just say, hey, take the primary key, increment it by 1. And then you're seeing where I'm using the rand uniform function. And here I'm saying, let's look at just this piece down in here. And this uppercase A starts at 65. So I'd say, hey, from 65, and then, the A to Z range is 26 characters. So I'm saying 65 plus 26 times whatever that value is, give me those things, right? And so I'd say, hey, for the first iteration, give me an uppercase character. After that, I want lowercase characters. And see how that kind of comes into play. And first off is that you'll see names like I use myself and Alan, and then after that it's just all fake names. So if you get down to here, I was saying you have to have at least one uppercase character, because I'm kind of emulating different links, but I think I constrained it to maybe 8 characters. And then I would just randomly say, are you a male or female? And then everybody's got a Gmail account, which is their first and last name separated by a period. And then, say start off with president, vice president, director, blah, blah, blah. And I've got all this on a GitHub repository, so you can see my code, but I didn't want to take the time to go through that part of it. And the other thing is I grabbed latitude and longitude values for different cities. In this case, I just said, let me get the top 10 US cities, and Overland Park, Kansas is where I live. And let's just go ahead and plot those out. So I used to be a contractor and I did a lot of maps. So, I was like, I just kind of wanted to share how this can be created. And it's kind of nice to have a bubble chart that utilizes, SAS in this instance to display, the different locations, and the bubble represents the number of persons in those different cities. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea how this can work. So you'll see like X equal X. Well, these are the latitude, longitude values. I forget which one's which, but in any event, so I'm saying use the count, which is up in the SQL statement right here, for these different city and states. So anyway, in this hierarchy that I've created, you'll see things like I just put myself as the first person and say, hey, I'm the president. And I'm like, okay, so is there a foreign key to staff? If you don't have a foreign key, this last column, that would mean that you are the top level. They call it the root node when you get into the graphics and so forth. And then I said, hey, Alan's below me. He's in San Antonio, Texas, just randomly. And you can see that he is pointing back to number 1 as the primary key, which is myself. And then, in the case of this person, whatever that name is on primary key 5 points back to 2, which is Alan. And that is the key. And then you see that I've got the latitude and longitude values for each of the rolled up cities. And then you can take this information, from the SAS OnDemand and do a proc export. And then you can just, because it's all in the cloud, you would just say, hey, write this data set to this out file as a CSV, and then you can go to that file and then, location, and just do a download, okay? So I guess getting out of SAS, but, SAS will feed this information is, like I said, D3, it stands for data-driven documents. I think it was created in 2011 by some guy that was working on his PhD, I believe. And it's just an amazing library. It's super fast. There's so many things that you can do with it. These, if you go to D3.js.org, you'll see this. And each of these are tiles. So you can click on these and they will show what that content looks like. And as far as this stuff goes, when you get in D3, it's a combination of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SVG, which is scalable vector graphics. And then you're doing a bunch of DOM manipulation. So it's pretty intense. It's pretty involved. But if I had to recommend a book, if anybody wants to get into this, and I've communicated with this guy, Scott Murray, Interactive Data Visualizations, I kind of thought might have been the best one. The only issue is it's related to version 4. And they keep putting updates. I think we're on version 7 now of D3, which again is a free JavaScript library, so there's no cost. But in any event, this is where a good place to start. And the other thing that you have to be aware of is that because you're going to load external files, that you can't just click on like, hey, this is on my C temp folder and expect it to work, because there's something called CORS, cross origin resource sharing, which means you have to create your own web server. So it's really not that bad, but you need to be aware of it. And basically there's an NPM package where you can get something called live-server, and that will work to render the content. Because what you're going to do is, the way my process works is I'm loading in a JSON file for the maps, and I'm also loading in a CSV file for the information we saw previously associated, of the SAS data set with the primary and foreign keys. And based upon that information, it just goes. But to do that, it goes in what JavaScript calls a promise. So it's kind of a delayed piece where it's like, okay, this is an asynchronous process, so I'm going to load this stuff. But if you don't have your own web server, it's going to fail. And so this just kind of will save you a lot of headache that you have to have this piece. And, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with SVG. It's been around for quite a while, but in the early days, Microsoft had a competing product. I forgot the name of it now. And the only way you got it was through an Adobe add-in. But then, it did become part of the W3C standards. So it's out there, it's very prevalent. And the key about it is you can see the graphic here where it says, here's a raster image, so like a PNG file. If you try to enlarge it, you're going to get, all this pixelization. And that's what this kind of emulates, right? With the scalable vector graphics, it doesn't, because it's all XML behind the scenes. And you just give these geometric values, and you can make it as small or as big as possible, and it's going to retain that shape throughout. So if you were to write SVG within HTML, you see the top right side. To render this blue line at the bottom, this is all you do. Give it a width of 200, a height of 50, and then give it a fill style of blue, and that's it. The same thing in D3. Again, you're hitting all these document object model components within the HTML. So you're saying, give me the body object, and then let's add on SVG, and then get a rectangle and assign the values. So one works for the other, and it may look like, well, the D3 is a lot more complex, but it really isn't, because it handles, looping and tons of data and things of that nature. But this just gives you a little bit of an idea of how this foundationally works. And then this was an example of this guy, Mike Bostock is his name. And he used to, he's the creator of D3. And this is the, I think, 2016 election results, just as an example. So he used to do, I think, all the major graphics for the New York Times. And this was an example of how he did it. So he was showing that if you mouse over, a state, it would show you the results. If you clicked on the state, it would drill down into the counties. And I think I've got a link to this. Yeah, here it is. So, and again, this will be in the content, so you can see this stuff, but like I live in the state of Kansas, and if I click, then you can see I'm drilling down and you see there's only 2 blue counties in the entire state. And then if like I live right here, then you can see how many percent and number of votes between these candidates, et cetera. And then I think, yeah, if I just click here, I come back. So I think it's a really nice visualization that just kind of shows the power of what D3 can do. And it's you know, it's very interesting how this all works. And let me see, so if I come back out of that. So this is the one that I've created. And this took a lot of time. But this is what I kind of visualized, is that I wanted to show, like, you know, so again, all this fake data I just showed you before. So I'm saying I'm at the president of this fake data, and we see Alan over here. And then you can see all the persons. So he's a vice president, director, manager, down to an employee, analyst type level. And I was, so part of my vision, I guess that's why I started that first slide, is I wanted to be able to show, in this case, 56 random named employees that I wanted to say, can I get it all on a single page? Well, yeah. Okay, then if I mouse over it, can I get all these different attributes? Give me your name, your title. And then, oh, hey, I want to show a picture of who that person is. I wanted to break down, and you see that I have the different blue and pinkish colors for male and female. What's the ratio? So you'll see in this case, because I did a 50-50 random split, that's exactly what it came out to. And then I said, if I mouse over a name, so in this emulation, my name will come up a little bit larger font. And then I'll say Overland Park, Kansas, where is it? And it shows the red right here. So let me click this. So this is running on my live server, local server. So this is on my local account. And how this works is, you know, you can see, like I said, here's me, here's Alan, right? Everybody knows Alan. And then I can click and explode these things out. And as they continue, have solid fills. And the name is on the left-hand side. They have, they call them children. And then at the end, you see these are not filled in. That means you're at the leaf node. There is no additional information. But I can go to this person. And again, I just made up information, but you see it's got Phoenix, Arizona. Of course, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with cities in the United States, but that is Phoenix here. And you can see I just went down this single path, but I could just say, let's expand all. And then I could just pick any person, and you see as fast as I move it, it updates, right? Because this is all in memory at this point. So again, so if I go back over Alan, you see all his information. You see that I said, hey, you're in San Antonio, Texas. Where is that? If otherwise I said, hey, well, okay, that's cool. He's in San Antonio, but who else is there? Well, there's 9 people. Everybody that's shown in red and with a larger font, those are every single person. So you see this crazy XRY person. So I go over that, San Antonio, Texas. You see the city pop up, and that's what we've got there. So I believe that is, I know I didn't have a whole lot of time, so I took a lot of this content and I was like, well, I don't think I'm gonna have all the adequate time to do it justice. So I kind of wanted to just quickly kind of go through this, and then I guess see if there were any questions.
I like what you've done here. It's very, very good looking diagram. In terms of how you use on demand to generate it. So did I capture that right? That on demand is used to generate the JSON?
Yeah, it was. I used it to generate a CSV file that feeds into the process. Correct.
Right. So you run your SAS to create the CSV file, and then you import the CSV file into your web app.
Yeah. So let me see. So if I get into here, accept. So sign in. And here. So again, this is all, you know, running in the cloud. It's all free, and it really is very fast. I think it's a great product for the price, especially, right? So, SAS Studio is, I guess, the interface of choice, or maybe the only interface to do things in SAS Via and things of that nature. We're on a SAS grid where I work, and I had been using Enterprise Guide, and I still do, only to create stored processes, but my preference is to use SAS Studio. And so here's the code, right? So I just had certain libraries. So if I come over here and open up my libraries, you're going to see the standard, SAS help and so forth, but then I can do this guy and run it. And then here is my updated libraries, and in here, so I have a bunch of zip codes. So I'm using zip codes to say, in my case, for instance, I have a coworker that lives about 20 miles away in what's a town called Raymore, Missouri. And my boss is in Shawnee, Kansas, which is about 15 miles away from where I'm at in Overland Park. But I didn't want to show 3 different cities, and I'm just rolling those up. And over here, we have something called CBSAs, which are core-based statistical areas. So in that case, even though I'm in Overland Park, I'm going to be in a consolidated area called Kansas City. And that's what that stuff is doing. But anyway, it was just basically, here I am just saying, give me, I want to format the phone because I'm using it as a number. And then I just have a random seed, pick whatever you want. And I was saying, hey, I found these different zip codes, which happen to be, top 10 largest cities. And then I grabbed that information just to say, here's a foundation. And then I'm saying, all right, let's go ahead and use that seed. And I'm going to keep all these different attributes. I'm running through here, collecting the information. And let me see. So again, I saw part of this code where I say, hey, take those zip codes that I just created. There's 10 cities, if you will. And I'm using the point equal to say, as I randomly say, grab one of these guys, then I'll just grab that, that value out of the zip code table, and that gets assigned. And then that's what happens. So then I was just rolling that information up to get this information as different coordinates. And then you see here's the SG map, and you saw how the map got rendered out with the bubble charts. And here I'm just creating the feed, and you'll see I'll have a reference, a self-reference to the same table, one as an employee, one as a manager, to come up with the content that feeds into D3. It has prepackaged information to take, and that component is called Stratify. And you just have to fill in a couple of, parameters and say, which one's basically the primary and foreign key in essence. And it just takes it from there. But this is the SAS piece of it. And like I said, it just kind of blossomed where I decided, create this fake data using SAS. I was using, SAS OnDemand, but my larger task was everything associated with D3 to do the visualization. And that's what this was all about.
Very nice. And how do you deploy this? So I understand this is an app you use in the workplace. How do you deploy it in the workplace?
I'm using something called Confluence as my web server. And to do an update, I just drag and drop the CSV file that gets rendered out of, gets created out of SAS. So for instance, right now we are that top root level node, the highest level, if you will. The person over the 70 people in my case, his last day was Monday. So, turned that one off, reset some keys, and the person to be named hasn't been named. So if we have a new person, as the top lead, or if additional persons come on or persons leave, you refresh the data, create the CSV file, drag and drop that single CSV file, and it drives the entire process.
Love it. I've got no more questions. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so well, thanks, Tom. I'll stop the video there.
Okay.
Okay,